Hello everyone, this is Russell Schmidt. I want to thank you today for finding some time to visit our presentation. We know you guys are very busy, especially in your industries. So today's presentation, like Wayne said, is entitled Beyond the Busy Signal, How to Handle Call Management and How Call Management Drives Business Success. My name is Russell Schmidt, and with me is Josh Ulrich. We're both account executives for Time Communications. Time Communications is an award-winning call center based in Minnesota. We have been in the business for over 40 years now, and we work with many different industries. So beyond HVAC and plumbing, we do service other industries also. Our role with a lot of businesses and companies is we do customized scripting and programming to ensure that calls are handled correctly and efficiently. Through these 40-plus years of experience, we've learned a lot about consumers and their habits when they're on the phone. Additionally, we've also seen how many businesses handle internal call volume and have worked closely with them to help monitor and design a process to be more efficient with their call handling. That's a big part for a lot of businesses. Some businesses don't pay as much attention to it as others, but we find that a lot of successful ones do monitor and they do pay attention to the internal call volume. So these are some of the things we'd like to talk a little bit about today. And our overall goal is just to have an open discussion about aspects of your business that maybe you haven't asked yourself. So please understand, we're not HVAC or plumbing specialists or experts. That's what you guys do. However, we do hear from your customers and clients on a daily basis when we answer calls. And like I said before, through this process, we understand many of their behaviors and how that first contact can impact the caller's experience basically for the whole company's overall success. So in this webinar, we'll talk about a lot of things. One of the things that we'll be starting with is understanding your audience, the customer's experience, and how you can leverage different resources to solve problems and manage your call volume. Many businesses, when they start looking at starting and developing businesses, they do what works best for them at the time, for the internal structure. Maybe this is designed because of your staffing levels at the time. Maybe it's just a budgetary thing and what you find best for handling your budget, or maybe it's just the way it's always been done and something that, again, if it's worked, don't need to fix it if it's working, but maybe it's the time to step back and look at it a little differently. So, and that's one of the questions you want to ask, have you done that lately for your overall business model? And take a look at it from your customer's point of view. So maybe the first question that we always want to ask yourself is, what does it look like from the customer's point of view? So let's go ahead and get started with that. First, every industry and every location is a little bit different. However, there are a lot of commonalities within industries. And I'm sure you see that, PHCC is a great organization. I'm sure you have a lot of conversation back and forth with fellow business owners, and you guys struggle with a lot of the same issues. But within these different or within the same industries, and you have different locations, is that the customer needs may be different. They may be different due to your geographical location, different regions. An HVAC company down south may have a different peak season than a company up in the upper Midwest. However, their urgency and the needs of these customers can remain the same with different geographical locations. So, and obviously these can change a little bit during the peak seasons. And they can also change during the holidays. They can change during time of day and day of week. That's the crazy thing, and you guys know that about your business, is that it fluctuates. It can be a slow time, it can be a busy time. And again, that can be due to seasons, or it can just be due to weather, just a freak storm. It can be due to holidays. Many factors go into supplying you guys' business with a lot of phone calls. So understanding your audience is a much larger factor in a successful business. And we'll circle back to that a couple times, but the state of mind of your customer will change depending on the situation. So as a business owner, some things we want to have you ask yourself is, how long is your customer willing to wait for service? When they call, are they willing to wait for someone to answer that phone call? Are they willing to leave a message? How urgent is their need? So from a customer's point of view, what does that look like in their time of need? And lastly, maybe are you the only option for service in that particular geographical area? If there's high competition, that's going to change how your customers react to calling a business. If you're the only option, I'm sure they're more willing to leave a voice message and wait for that call back. But if you're in a very high competitive area, a voice message may not be the most effective way to manage your call volume, because unfortunately people want to talk to people now. I mean, that's just the way it is. People want to have a response immediately. So please keep in mind this will be different for every industry in each region, but take some time to look at your business through your audience eyes, because essentially that's what you're there for. And again, understanding your audience is really the first step in designing an internal business model and handling your specific call volume. This will change on a regular basis because no two situations will be the same. Your nice, understanding customer who baked your cookies for installing your new faucets may not be so nice when their sewer's backing up and they're flooding out their basement. So you may know your customers when they're nice, but what is it like in an emergency situation? So make sure that when you're designing your internal structure, you look at it from the customer's point of view as to when do they need us, and are they okay with how my internal structure is, and can we make it a little bit better for them maybe? So the next part of understanding your business is understanding your audiences. How do people find you? I'm not going to go into a lot of the marketing component, but each company, I'm sure, puts monies and dollars into marketing to their potential clients. So you want to make sure that you're also advertising ways that people can find you. Honestly, it doesn't matter whether this person is a loyal customer or a potential customer who's upset with your competitor, or maybe it's an emergency situation. The thing is that you need to be where they can find you at the time the need arises. So we did a quick little cut here in some geographical research, and like I said, I won't go in depth on this, but there are different types of marketing, as you all know, and the pros and cons of these are weighted pretty evenly. However, it's important to understand how aspects of your audience in the buying process and through the buying process. So if the need arises, they need to find somebody, and the next step is how do they find you. In a study here, searching habits of consumers conducted in rural Minnesota, it was discovered that 52% of consumers use both still phone book and internet to find business. However, the same study was conducted in Fargo, North Dakota, and to compare the difference between the rural and urban consumers, you'll see that 59% of consumers still use both methods to find businesses. So you may think that print is maybe a dead way to advertise, but it is actually a way that people still use. So again, make sure you have that option. And you'll actually see a higher level using the phone book in the more rural areas than the urban areas. Again, there can be a lot of factors, and that's why we talk about, even though you may be in the same industry, some of your challenges may be different. Maybe there's not great internet access, or maybe it's just a older population. There's a lot of factors in how you're going to advertise. But again, make sure that you have multiple platforms for people to find you, and having your presence on all these different platforms. So no matter what the situation is, maybe their cell phone's dead, computer's not working, they have options. So now that we talked a little bit about, real quick, the audience, maybe structuring your business more from the audience point of view and them finding you, the biggest thing that we talk about and we deal with in our business is going to be who will answer that call. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time today, is going to be talking about this component of it. I want to touch a little bit on the audience and the platforms in which you market, because that is a part of your component and that is part of your audience. But the biggest thing is when there's a need, they need to find you. They find you, they make the call. So what does it look like when they first contact your business? So typically, when a customer dials your number, they're definitely in an elevated state of need. You all know that. You all hear those conversations. It could be 100 degrees outside, 70% humidity, middle of summer, and their air conditioning isn't working. It could be Thanksgiving. They have family over, and somebody just put the whole turkey down the garbage disposal, and now all of a sudden all their time and energy is focused on a plumbing issue versus the family that's over. So again, it comes back to understanding your audience, their elevated state of need in which they they have when they try to contact you. But overall, the situation is the same. There's a problem. It needs to be fixed. And where they are in the situation, they call you, and they're given the business to hopefully you being a loyal customer. So if that's the case, will you be there to answer that phone? You know, that's your number one goal, is to make sure that you are there when your client needs you. We'll get into that work-life balance component a little bit later. Josh will talk a lot about that and the options in which businesses have to help with that work-life balance. But the main thing is that to find a structure internally that will allow you to do both, answer your customers at the time they need you, and do work-life balance. So again, that'll be a big part of our presentation a little bit later, some of these options. But please understand, internally, finding that system that works the best. So it really starts with that first phone call. You know, the overall initial contact with your business is probably one of the most important components of the buying process. You know, what do your customers or prospective customers experience when they call you? You know, so how is this process managed internally? How is it managed internally during the daytime, during normal business hours? How is it handled internally after hours, evenings, weekends, holidays? You know, what systems do you have in place? You know, during normal business hours, you know, do you have an office person, which is awesome? They do a great job for you. Maybe they're doing files or taking phone calls or helping customers. But what's happening when that one office person is with somebody and the other lines are ringing? Where does that phone go to? You know, does it bounce to maybe another person in the office? Does that call potentially go to voicemail? Does that person maybe leave a message? How often do you answer that voicemail? How often do you check it? Or how long does it go unchecked is maybe a better question. So, and then obviously the worst case scenario in all that is that maybe you have a busy signal, you have someone on the phone and there's a busy signal, and they can never even get that opportunity to leave a voice message. So again, this will be a little bit later in the process, but when you're creating a structure, you know, what does that look like? You know, so how do you know what calls are being missed, and what are your plans? So during the daytime, holidays, middle of the night emergencies, you know, do you have an on-call tech? We hear a lot of people that use rotating on-call techs. Maybe they rotate a cell phone, you know, and the person has their personal cell phone, work cell phone, works for a lot of companies, does a lot of good things. Do you have a backup for that situation in case that on-call tech can't answer the phone, or maybe the on-call tech is in the middle of a job, they're wrenching on something, their work phone's ringing, they can't get to it, and all of a sudden you're back at a voicemail situation. So what's the backup to that? These are all things that you want to kind of look at when you're looking at your internal process. Again, from the customer's point of view, they may not know that your people are servicing somebody else at the time, and maybe they're not as tolerant of that situation as maybe what you think they are. So addressing these questions really can be the most important part of the customer experience. So begin to document different scenarios and start to notice some patterns in your interactions, because overall the customer's experience really does direct your bottom line in business. What I mean by that is that, you know, how much does a lost call potentially cost you? Have you really looked at that component of that lost voicemail, or someone who didn't get back, or the cell phone that wasn't answered? You know, what does that lost call in a business cost you? Not only potentially for that day, but the potential of a repeat long-term customer, as well as the potential referrals for a job well done. Maybe it's the friends and family of their great experience with your company. So again, it may be one phone call, but exponentially, it can be a lot more than that. So make sure to take a step back and understand that one phone call can be a lot more than just that one job. You know, there's just where most people want to be heard is that first initial phone call. That, you know, that's where it starts. You know, they want to express their concerns and have someone listen and acknowledge that their concerns are valid. You know, this is something that's not fully satisfied by leaving a voicemail for a lot of people. You know, they want to talk to a person. They want to have some give-take conversation. You know, they want to work with a company that's willing to invest time and money into their needs. You know, I mean, we're all in the service industry. That's what we do, making ourselves available for the customer. They want to know that they're being valued. So again, you put a lot of time and money into your marketing. You put a lot of time and money into your resources. You know, make sure you maximize your return on investment. Obviously, it's working if they're calling you, but again, how are you handling that call? And again, each business will be different due to geographical, industry, you know, competition. However, people still find the value in talking with people. You know, and I kind of refer back to Discover Card now. You see a lot of those commercials now with Discover Card with their tagline, you know, we treat you like you treat you. You know, a lot of the big businesses are really understanding that having someone answer that phone live, there's a value in that. You know, you see a lot of the companies starting to advertise that way. And also the tagline for Discover of, you know, of course I'm real. You know I'm real. Not a machine taking the phone call, not going through prompts, pushing buttons, but again, looking through it from the customer's point of view and elevate a state of emergency and answering those calls when they do come in. So within this, as we're talking about it, you know, there's a statistic that they say 7 out of 10 consumers have ended their relationship due to poor customer service, and I'm sure you've seen that, and trying to recover those customers can be very difficult sometimes. And 61% of these customers take their business to their competitor. So again, understanding your geographical, understanding your competition, understanding your audience. You know, if your customers can't get a hold of you, they probably are calling someone else. You know, and it's likely that when their situation arises in the future, if you may not be that first phone call the next time. You may have an opportunity to get that client back, but they're going to take their service to the person in which answered that phone many times. And again, invest time and money into their issues and being heard. That's a big part of it. So answering the phone call really is the first step and can be the most important aspect of a customer's experience because it's the first contact. You know, we all make our first knee-jerk reaction to a situation, whether it's in person at a brick and mortar store or on the phone. That initial contact does mean a lot to a consumer. So it's no surprise that wait times, hold times do play a large factor in customer satisfaction. So within these statistics, there's also another one, and we all love statistics in our industry, but 70% of the buying experience is based on how a customer feels they're being treated. And 90% of the people complain about being on hold for a long period of time. So again, is this your audience? Are they okay with holding? Are they okay with leaving a message? Are they understanding to your situation as a business, or they focus more on their situation as a consumer? You know, do you understand what your audience's tolerance level is? So the question you need to ask yourself is just how long is your customer willing to wait? Or are they willing to wait? You know, it comes back into what we talk in the industry a lot of real hold times. You know, people, you'll probably hear it also in your industry of, you know, I was on hold for 10 minutes when in actuality maybe it was a minute and a half. You know, time flies a lot faster in an elevated state of need or a state of panic. So it's the more perceived time than it is the reality of time. And that's unfortunately kind of where we are with business today and the world today, is that it's the perception of what it is versus the reality. You know, people will look at their phone and say, well, I've been on hold for 2 minutes, but in their mind it feels a lot longer. So depending on their situation and their past experiences, you know, they may be tolerant, they may not, but the reality of it is that that time is going to move a lot faster in a state of panic or a state of need. So the bottom line is, for a customer, every second does count. So as you go through this, you know, how do you gather this information? How do you look to improve your customer experience? You know, for this aspect of the presentation, Josh will talk about different aspects in how you can start to dive a little bit deeper into your business and start talking a little bit more about some tools that are out there as a consumer or as a business start looking at, how you can look at different ways to manipulate your phones, how you can start tracking some data, and overall, hopefully help understanding some of the call volume. So, because overall, call management can improve your customer experience. And like I said, with that, Josh is going to take over the second half here and start talking about some of these different features and options that you may not know exist. So, go ahead, Josh.
Thanks, Russ. Hello, everyone. We'll dive right in here. So, yeah. So, really, where Russ left off is, tracking your calls is the first step to both understanding your customers and also learning how to better manage your calls. So, call management, was what we're going to be focusing on, and we'll start here with, how to use technology to better track and manage your calls. With first, phone features. Which is the easiest. Everybody has a phone, I'm assuming. That can be cell phone, landline, everything like that. And what I recommend is first going right in and checking, call forwarding. So call forwarding allows you to forward your calls to certain numbers. So, for example, if there's an emergency that takes everyone out into the field, you can forward those calls right to their cell phone so they're not missed, and while everyone's out of the office. I encourage you to talk to your phone company about that, as well as some of the other options like call forwarding not reachable. That's also a great tool because, like in the cases of like a power outage, if there's some kind of natural disaster and your office, is unavailable, it'll actually forward your calls right from your landline over to your cell phone or however you have that set up. So those are sometimes we don't even think about that. What happens when I'm not in the office? What happens when I'm not able to take any calls in my office because of an emergency? Do you have something set up for that? Or there's also, it's called the Hunt group. Now this feature automatically routes calls from a busy phone line to one that's free. So that's another awesome feature that, like I said, just call your phone company. That's generally easy to set up and very cost efficient. And what that'll do is that routes, again, if one of your lines is busy, it'll bring it to one that's free. So that can be if your receptionist phone line is busy, then it'll go to your phone line. Or if your phone line's busy, then it'll go to another phone line. And that's something, again, that you can set up with your phone company. So, there's also often different types of reporting available. They can help you better plan your resources. For example, you could review the number of busy signals customers are receiving. So I know Russ talked about earlier busy signals. Well, there's actually reporting that you can get from your phone company or your phone system that'll tell you if you are actually missing calls. And so that's really great information to have, and I encourage all of you to see if you can get that information because sometimes people don't even know how many calls they could be missing due to busy phone lines, or if your phone lines are over capacity. Or if you see that consistently on Friday evenings your on-call staff is missing multiple phone calls, because of that reporting, you can add people or add more support to those days. So that's really where those are just the easy steps. Again, call forwarding not reachable, Hunt group, and then also understanding and getting that reporting if people are getting a busy town, so that you can then plan accordingly with extra staff and things of that sort. So, what happens though? So if you find that after all those, those couple fixes, you're still losing out on opportunities, still can't manage your calls, there's also other options. So when simple fixes aren't enough, what do we do? And first, easiest and, well, the one that everybody thinks about first is hiring extra staff. So during these busy times, this can be very helpful, but it's not always cost effective, just depending on, your benefit structure, fees, and hiring costs. And not only that, but you'd have to make sure first, again, do you have enough time to train the extra staff to understand your business? You want to make sure that everyone you bring in, of course, is understanding what you do, your company, your culture. So sometimes during the busy seasons, that's not what we want to do, is train extra staff. Also, too, another thing to think about is, will you be able to keep them when business slows down? So if you do have slower times, you want to make sure that you don't have too much staff. So it might not always work to hire a whole bunch of extra staff, because if you do have big changes from busy season to slow season, you want to make sure that you're able to keep everyone on. You can also send calls to your voicemail or phone prompt system. This is also a very easy option. But as we discussed previously, many companies still lose business due to this, as most customers do not want to wait for a response when dealing with an emergency. They want to talk to someone right now, and they want to go, go, go. So again, this is why it's so important to have a system or process in place that allows you to track your calls, because you really don't know unless someone complains or someone says something to you. You don't know if someone called, got a phone prompt system, or got a voicemail and hung up, because a lot of the times those customers are going right back to Google or right back to the phone book, and they're going to call the next company, especially when it's an emergency or they haven't used you before. Another option is using an answering service to assist with call volume. A call center can be very helpful for after hours or during high volume periods. They can also, a lot of the times, most call centers have a department or specialize in the emergency industry or the service industry. So the training and customer service reps and everything can be great for your business. And on top of that, an answering service can supply you with all that reporting that we've talked about. So they can generally, a call center should be able to supply you with how long your calls have been waiting for, how many people hung up once they got that, once they got the thank you for calling, or if they just hung up while they were waiting. On top of that, you can get call recording, all of that with an answering service. Now, it can also be a challenge because you have to make sure you find the right company. There's a lot of different answering services out there in a lot of different areas, and you want to make sure that that you're using the right one for your business. So I encourage you, if you do decide to go with the answering service route, make sure that you're choosing the right company, and make sure you're doing your homework and getting a demo of their system. Asking them questions like, what's your turnover rate? How long do your calls wait on average before being answered? And then make sure you do your homework afterwards too, and call in and check and make sure that that's real. So those are a couple different options. Again, the phone prompt system, hiring extra staff, answering services are all great options that aren't as easy as obviously adding call forwarding or anything like that, but they can definitely be a good fix and a good plan for call management. So beyond your customer experience, you also want to think about how call management impacts your employees and their experience, and how your emergency peak call time processes are impacting your own life. So, are you or your staff awoken at 2 a.m. by the phone? Are you able to spend weekends and holidays with family without interruption? Are your techs rushing through each job just to keep up? These are all good questions to ask yourself. You want to make sure that, your techs are having enough time to spend with each customer. They're able to personalize each job. Because when the work's done right, you don't have to go back and fix it, because that, of course, can, you lose money, profits, everything like that. It can be demoralizing when you have to redo a job. So, the call management piece isn't just for your customer's experience, but also your own experience and your employee experience. Because in the end, if you can master the call management, the customer experience, and that improves your employee experience, of course, that can improve your company culture. So learning to better manage your calls and create a good customer experience, that can also help your employees feel good about what they're doing at work. It helps your techs so they're not splitting up time trying to take phone calls, text while they're on the road, instead of focusing their energy on each and every customer. Those who work in the service industry know that time off is a rare luxury, and when you have to be available and on call at all hours of the day or even every other week, managing your calls separately from your staff can make all the difference. Having that process in place can be huge for your staff and yourself. Plus, with employees electronically connecting to the workplace 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that work-life balance is already a challenge for anyone. So, by having a process in place, you're likely to see increased morale, productivity, loyalty, and longevity from your employees, because you're actually demonstrating that you appreciate their time and well-being. But not just that, but you have a process in place to show them that you value that. So that can be huge. So through all that, obviously now you'll have to create a call management plan. That's the best place to start. So creating a call management plan can help you better handle excess phone traffic, offer more support to customers, manage your own schedules, and respond quicker and more accurately. When developing a plan to manage your calls, it is important, though, to think about the different scenarios that can change your call volume at different times. So for most businesses, there's two seasons. There's the busy season and the slow season. And typically, this concept revolves around the dominant season in your region. For example, in the northern states, we have winter emergencies. They're a huge cause for concern, such as when your heating system breaks, pipes freeze, when it's below zero temperature. Or, of course, in the summer months in the southern states, 100-degree weather with high humidity can turn dangerous for an elderly couple or someone with an infant. So, those are both extremes in different areas. So make sure, during your busy season, of course, these emergencies are plentiful, and every customer becomes an urgent priority. So think about what happens during that busy season and how your business typically reacts to the customer demands. This again is why it's so important to understand your customers and their needs. And that's, the first step to developing a call management plan is understanding that busy season. How are you right now reacting to that busy season? And, maybe thinking, does your business have tunnel vision? For most businesses, during that busy season, it's easy to get just tunnel vision. So your jobs are rushed, mistakes are more prevalent, callbacks and second visits increase. The days get longer, of course, to keep up with call volume. You're constantly going from job to job, phone call to phone call, coordinating with your techs and other people that you work with. And you're so focused on just keeping up that it can be hard to find time to stop and listen. So I know that during that time, when you have, when it is crazy and it's busy, it's hard to think about making a call management plan. That's why using your slow season is so important. So make sure you take lessons from the slow season. Your slow season is usually the time when business operates the way you wish it would all the time. Your hours are controlled, you're spending time with each client, and you have the opportunity to offer more for your customers and make sure you're not rushing through each job just to get to the next job. And you're also, of course, getting the job right, done right the first time. So the question is, how can you replicate your success during the slow season to maximize your busy season? And it really is as easy as scaling your process. So first, observe what works, for your customers. Understand why your customers are calling and how they expect you to respond. That can obviously better allow you to prepare with on-call staff. So another question you can ask yourself is, are all those questions after-hours emergencies? Or are most customers just looking to get on the books for the next business day, or do they just want to pay a bill? Make sure you understand why your customers are calling first and how they expect you to respond. And that's a huge factor, especially in the busy season, making sure you're understanding what types of calls you're getting so you can better manage those calls. I encourage you to experiment with having customers leave messages and receive callbacks. How do they react? Make sure I'd make sure you write all this down. Any customer feedback you get, if you are using that model right now or you want to move to that model, make sure you're asking customers how the process was. Was the callback time soon enough? Did you prefer to leave a voicemail message, first talk to someone? Or, try using an answering service. It doesn't have to be, a lot of answering services are willing to do a smaller, not make you sign a contract or anything like that. And ask your customers what they thought of the process. And also make sure you go back and check stats. Have your account manager give you the recordings so you can listen to them and see if, see if that's the route to go. So, of course, there's also, things that you can do on your own. So gauging the difference between calling and leaving a voice message, and calling and talking to a live person, which provides a more positive experience for your customers, and in what scenario did you receive better feedback from your clients. So if you're just, again, doing the voicemail option, or you're trying to answer or let them leave a voicemail and call them right back, making sure you're getting that information and getting the feedback from your customers. And also, again, this is where the reporting aspect comes in handy, because you want to make sure that you have the reporting you need to see, is the voicemail option working, or is the answering service option working, or is hiring more staff working. Also, too, what if there's a way to service your customers by filtering out the non-emergency calls so your technicians only have to be on call for true emergency situations. So whether that's developing a script with a phone prompt system that weeds out those non-emergency calls, maybe that goes to voicemail and the emergency goes to one of your technicians, or again setting that up with an answering service so only true emergencies are being dispatched to you or texted out to you. You know, these are all great, you know, scenarios and great options that will help your whole customer experience, again, and your employee experience, you know, down the road. So again, think about how your expectations change from season to season and how it changes from customer to customer. You know, develop solutions that work for your company, because everything, of course, in the end has to work. You know, the cost has to work, the time has to work, the number of employees that you have has to work. So make sure that you know, take all that information in, ask for customer feedback, ask for employee feedback, and in the end, you know, of course, the goal is to provide a fantastic customer experience. So overall, as a business, you need to know your customer, understand their needs, and plan for changes in call volume. Develop your call management plan and understand your customers. So if you can determine your customers' expectations by listening to feedback and analyzing call activity, you can better prepare your business for changes to your call volume. So we're going to open it up at this time here for some questions. So I know we went through a lot of information about you know, your customer experience and call management plans and some different options on phone systems, phone features, answering services. So if anyone has any questions at this time, I know Russ and I would be glad to answer them.
What are some ways that you can track calls?
So there's some different, you know, there's obviously, depending on which route you go, there's several different ways, of course, that you can track calls. So one would be, so let's say your voicemail option or your phone features just through your own phone system. A lot of the times your phone system, depending on what kind of phone system you have, can obviously track your calls, incoming calls, busied calls, how many calls were transferred, things of that sort. If that's not an option with your phone system, you can always, I'd recommend calling and actually talking with your phone company, because there's always different reporting and features that they have. Now, that can vary with costs and stuff, of course, but I definitely recommend calling your phone company because they can give you call statistics, as well as they can give you call statistics on, you know, is someone getting a busy signal when they're calling? Are they just getting a beep because you're over capacity on your phone lines? You know, make sure you check on how many phone lines you have coming in as well. Now, if you're using an answering service, a lot of the times because of the system that they have, they can give you some, you know, like I know for ourselves and clients that we deal with, the reporting that we can give them is vast. So we can give them reporting on how many calls came in, you know, during what times their call volume's coming in. We can give them statistics on how many people reach that, you know, because some companies want to set it up where they have non-emergencies go to a voicemail actually, and we can do that, and then just then emergencies go to one of our representatives. So we can actually let them know too if someone did get to that voicemail option if they hung up, or if they had to wait for 10 seconds if they hung up at that point. So there's a lot of different tracking and call statistics that an answering service can give you, and again, it varies depending on the answering service that you go to, so make sure if you do decide to contact an answering service, you're asking all those questions. You're asking, do you have call recording? You know, can I actually listen to my calls? Because that's another great one that you can get usually with an answering service, and that way you can analyze your calls on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis, and you can get all of those statistics, and you can see and actually break down on holidays I'm getting this many calls, on evenings and weekends I'm getting this many calls, and in the end that can really help your business.
All right, thanks. It looks like we have another question that came in. I think this might be a popular question, but Janet was saying, we have a staff member that gets really stressed when the business season hits because of all the calls. What can be done to help him deal with this? Because we need to maintain our standards during all call seasons. Do you have any examples or any insight into that?
Yeah, I can talk on that one a little bit. I mean, one, it's great that you're recognizing that, and listening to your employees. That is a big part of a successful business, is knowing what your employees are going through, and during the busy season, to how they take the brunt of everything. The biggest thing that we talk about when we start talking with clients is making sure that the calls that get to the technicians have value. If you've got a rotating cell phone or on-call team members, make sure that when that phone call gets to that person, that it is actually an emergency. There's nothing. I've been in industries before where I'm getting calls and they take me away from my state of mind with family and friends, and there's no value in the call for me because it was just had to do something with a bill or an invoice, but it still takes me away from where I am at that moment. So if internally, like Josh kind of hit on it, people don't always love phone prompts, but having a phone prompt system that will weed out some of those calls, if this is inquiry about an invoice or question about scheduling for a future appointment, please press 1. If you need immediate assistance and emergency, please press 2. Hopefully at that point, those calls that will get to that people pressing 2 will have value to that technician. In our industry, that's what we do. I always consider ourselves as kind of the filter between the customer and your team. And what I mean by that is that we hopefully will be able to filter out those non-emergencies through follow-up questions. Hypothetically, in a plumber situation, if someone calls up and says, you know what, I have a clogged toilet, a follow-up question that we often ask, well, is it the only working toilet in your residence? If it's a yes, then it's dispatched as an emergency. If it's a no, then it's dispatched or then it's taken as an office message for follow-up for the next business day. So again, if you can find a way to filter out those non-emergencies, I think Josh hit on a little bit earlier too, I'm not getting any heat. Okay, well, is your furnace running? Is it not running? Is there some way that you can have someone troubleshoot before you get to the emergency component? These are all little things that as a business you want to look at, but valuing your employees' time, having a system in place to do so, I'd say is a very important aspect of what you guys do, because like Josh said before, it does show that you value your employees. But the other thing that a lot of people will do is we'll have, what we do is people will give us a couple different options for technicians. They'll give us 1, 2, 3, first call, second call, third call. And as we go through the process, if we call out to somebody, we'll have technicians say, you know what, I'm in the middle of a job, can you call the next person? And then we call the next person and go to them and see if they're available. And we can go through a process of multiple people. And again, that takes the weight off of just one person to take all those phone calls, because they know that they've got a system in place where there's maybe a second or third person as a priority backup. So looking at having some sort of a system like that, or having those phones automatically bounce to a second person, like Josh said on the hunts group, where if one person doesn't answer, they can go to another. Or I've seen it where it rings multiple calls at the same time, and the first person who gets to it wins type situation. These are all different ways in which you can try to help monitor those call volumes or help alleviate some of those non-emergency calls to your on-call staff that are just trying to enjoy a nice dinner with the family, as well as service the business, which they're obviously committed to also.
And I'll have add one more thing here too, Russ. Jen and I saw that you had another thing that you put. This is also an office staff person. So that's another thing is, so when you have office staff people, like you said, are getting stressed about those incoming calls during that busy season. Just from I used to do some training with one of our locations and dealing with our customers service representatives and everything. So one is just teaching this, teaching employees call control. Of course, it's easy to talk on the phone, but if it is a very busy time, making sure that they're using their time management skills appropriately. So getting the information you need, telling them, reassuring the customer that either they're going to call them back right away, or that the job is going to be completed, and then moving on to the next call. And not that you don't want to be, you can still be friendly, but maintain call control. So if it's just that the call volume, you have a lot, but it's not crazy amounts, and that one person can still handle that, just helping them take those steps to get through those calls a little quicker, and maybe doing some different training courses online on customer service and call control, because that's a huge thing that we teach on with our customer service reps is, being friendly and helpful, but at the same time guiding the call so that they're not lasting too long, so we can continue on with the next and the next and the next. And then, of course, if you want to focus on the answering service aspect of, we can always set up with companies, it's called a busy no auto answer. And what that is if your lines are over capacity or your lines are busy, it can actually forward over to your call center. So if there's just a couple month period where you really need the extra help and you just, you really need it during the day, you can actually set it up with an answering service where if your phone lines are in capacity, it's forwarding over to us. We take the call as you would, and then we email or text or call with the information or the emergency. So those are a couple different options too for an office staff person, and not just the plumber.